to this course Basic Manufacturing Process Unit 4 and Lecture 81. In this video, I present the most important of topics in the miscellaneous of process. This is the manufacturing first of process of agenda for today present in this video of the topics the history of the powder metallurgy. History of the powder metallurgy, main main characteristics of the powders and the morphology. First is the property of morphology, powder size, range of the distribution, powder flowability, chemical composition and sprayability, the powder metallurgy process, the production of powder, production of metal powder and atomization. These are topics in present in this video in very detail. The history of the powder metallurgy, the archaeological evidence. The archaeological evidence is the suggest to the powder metallurgy oriented in the Pacific for around 2500 BCC, while the sociological evidence indicated that the accident African and tribes may be have to hard and similar technology in applications. So this is used for the powder metallurgy. The procedure in iron powder, which was then the composition of the composition of the bonded of materials in the grains of the attractive material is the very loosely of the between the particles of the materials to produce in iron powder, which was in the coefficient of bonded in in the South Africa. South Africa produced the platinum over the 400 years ago using the powder metallurgy technologies. The technology in the application of the work from the powder of metals in the process for the making a part by the powder metallurgy. The powder metallurgy also use powder of material produced by the powder of methods of materials, metals oxidize and blend to the together. The sometimes which additional binders is used in the powder in the flex and lubricant. The final mixture is the produce which is the food dye and feed of the together to high pressure generated to the powder. The powder metallurgy has the advantage over the normal allowance of the process. The dissimilar metals that would be normally suggest to the difference of density of the materials, difference density of materials and the difference of density of melting point and can be form of the alloy. The additional materials that do not can be cautious to the in the matrix and influence of bulk properties of the materials in the application of the powder metallurgy is generated to the in engineering and most of application used in the liability of the generate to the product and the testing of the powder is the density of the particles. The continue powder metallurgy is used in making part by having the irregular cover of the material the reasons that are the hard to machine, and the powder metallurgy is used in making the part from that have the irregular cover for occur the reasons that are the hard to the materials in application of the machine. It is the suitable for high volume production which vary little wastage of the materials in the of the powder. The secondary machining is the variance of the eliminated. The secondary machining is the virtually in the eliminated. Powder metallurgy processing is a useful. Metallurgy processing is useful. The approaches for producing the wide range of the both the development and chemical commercial materials is the sum of product and application. The some materials including the tungsten carbide cutting tools and high performance of the aluminum properties composite for the aerospace and application and mechanically for alloyed nickel based of superalloys cannot rapidly produce using and other techniques in application of the powder metallurgy is the generated to the powder in the required by the high pressure of the volume of materials. The main characteristic of the powder method, the morphology. The morphology is the powder can be critical for the determining of both low characteristics of wall for the playing and the important role in the heat and phenomena that transfer to the powder during the spraying for the of the material and generalized to the morphological part of the powder can be destroyed in the dissimilar particle is generated to the uh, nano particle and the micro size of particles is the generated to the by using the more chemicals and the manufacturing process likely to the spherical block of powder test to the have the high therefore large and is similar dissimilar of the particle in produced in the powder particle is quite far close. The spherical or the powder or the broadly the spherical in sieve of the powder metallurgy in the application. The powder size range and distribution. In general, the powder are the designed to is in the terms of the simple size or range. The simple size of the range of the historical these are often quite in terms of the mesh size used in the traditional saving classification. The mesh number actual for defined to the variety of the wafer used in the metallurgy in the powder. The standard saving for the samwa for and the R. This is the particle size distribution important to the end user in the following view of the particle direct impact on finished product of quality material, easy and efficiency of the letting of dice of the application of materials in the deficiency of letting. The wide size and distribution flow wide the between large particle to be filled with the smaller particle. The porosity find the particle. The porosity find particle is the similar process easily closed for during the stirring and process and is for the times for the negative effect on the flow of property of materials that can be cracking environmental and continuous of the proficiency in the application of the powder to generate it to the all the articles to the powder is the powder density the density of particles it depend on the materials behavior of the types of different material is the property of the powder is like to the different in the application of the field. The powder flowability is the powder flowability of the very important all the thermal spray of process in application in the powder material. The poor flow lead to the very listed to the inconsistency of the powder feed rate or the coating for the build of the rate of the materials. Generally, half flow in use for the characterize the powders, the material. The half flow is the measure by the timing the flow of the sample of powder through the standard of the or fixed half flow in the affected by both powder and morphological and size range of the application on the material. Generally, to the more irregular shape and size of the powder's material size and the grain size of the flow of the powder occurs in the flow in the range of the powder homology. The chemical composition of the powder metallurgy, the process. There are two types of the. And the first is the raw material, the eliminated for alloy metal and powder, and the other is the content of the additive graphite dye insulating. The both are mixing in the one stand of the materials, that is the mixing of chamber. The hot composition and the cold composition. The in this the operation is used the forming operation. This is the isolatic and extrusion process, die compacting and spraying for the less of the citing, and the cold persistence of the dyeing compacting of the isolating and rolling for injection molding and select the casting is the application in setting. The of the atmospheric vacuum and high temperature required for the cold compression of the material original metallurgy setup. These are the centering of the or original manufacturing setup are the repressing of the repressing, coining for sizing and registering for forging rheology for the metal insulating. The original operation in the other step for the machining of the powder, the heat trading and steam trading and plastic impregation and the painting and billing for oil in impregation and hot pressing of the material product. The finished product is the application. The finished product is the product is achieved by the article form, and the other is product. They are the it define of the main component of the main part of the powder metallurgy in application of the mixing in the compaction and the cold compaction. And the cold compaction also used in this process, and the other is this after is using for the centering operation. The centering of atmosphere vacuum and high temperature in application of the centering operation. The containing is the two types of the optional manufacturing steps and the optional finishing steps. This process is used in manufacturing process, and optional finishing process, this is the machining operation, and other is used as some of product. These those both are process used in the make for the finish of product is achieved for these steps are finally product is good. The powder metallurgy process in the thank you so much. I will present in this video in the powder or metallurgy of the process.